Hi, my name is Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLLC. I'm also the president of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association, and I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about Proposal 1. As we've seen from many of the advertisements of those organizations that are opposing Proposition 1, specifically some of the sheriffs, the Ingham County Sheriff in particular, and in response to his proclamations, the first question I would ask him is, Sheriff, did you ever consider why marijuana was made illegal in the first place? And if you had to answer that question, what would you say? And if you knew what the real answer was, would you really be against Proposition 1? Because the answer to the question of why marijuana is illegal goes back to a very significant point in American history. It's during one of the, during the Nixon era, and the determination by Nixon, he proclaimed, needed to be made of the making of the Controlled Substances Act and the determination of whether or not marijuana should be placed on it, and if so, where. So Nixon created a group of men, his handpicked, chosen friends and colleagues, in what became known as the Schaefer Commission. They traveled around the world for 2 years, doing research, analyzing, taking data, and wrote a comprehensive report. In fact, it's the most comprehensive report about marijuana to date, done by the federal government. And in their conclusions, they say that Nixon should not put marijuana on the controlled substance list at all. And years later, when his right-hand man, Ehrlichman, his chief of staff, was asked about this particular topic, he said, "You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies and the blacks with marijuana and heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities," Ehrlichman said. "We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." So this is the tone by which marijuana was made illegal. In fact, when Nixon was presented with a report suggesting that marijuana not be made illegal, he responded by saying, "Didn't you get the memo? These are the people I want to go after. I can't arrest them because they're my political opponents. I need a reason. And if they're using marijuana, that's my reason." So, to the sheriff of Ingham County and all the opponents, I asked the question, why was marijuana made illegal in the first place? And if you know the true answers, I just explained it, would you still be against it? Because if you think about all the damage that's been done, the last 46 years since the Schaefer report, all the people that have gone to jail, all the wasted resources of police utilities and personnel, and violence that's caused by all of that behavior. Just imagine, it had not been made illegal, how much better off we would have been. To the sheriff of Ingham County, I would ask the following questions. When you look at the most comprehensive study that's been made regarding marijuana, some very significant conclusions were made. And I'm wondering if when you made the statements of it's a bad idea to have adults smoking marijuana as a general principle and that people are going to abuse it, I ask you, where do you get your information? Is it from a source, a documented, reliable place that you can cite? Because I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to rely upon the most comprehensive federal study that's been made to date, wherein they conclude that in determining what is the social impact of marijuana use. And in short, the conclusions were that no relationship between marijuana and crime exists, except perhaps a negative one. Marijuana use lessens crimes. Driving tests revealed no significant correlations between marijuana use and driving disabilities, specifically on page 88 of the Schaefer report. Even in early investigation of marijuana and crimes, if any relationship was indicated, it was not a positive and direct causal connection, but an inverse or negative statistical correlation. Rather than inducing violent or aggressive behavior, marijuana was usually found to inhibit the expression of aggressive impulses by pacifying the user, interfering with muscular coordination, reducing psychomotor activities, and generally producing states of drowsiness, lethargy, timidity, and passivity. In fact, when marijuana using offenders were compared with offenders who did not use marijuana, the former were generally found to have committed less aggressive behavior than the latter. So, Sheriff, what are you talking about? Is there a statistic that you can say or establish that marijuana use is going to cause more problems for your department? There's going to be more violence? Or are you just talking about people who are of age, instead of using alcohol, are going to engage in responsible recreational use? Is that what you're saying? That's a world that we're going to be offset by? I find that hard to believe. There's an old saying which you should think about, which is, if you give a group of guys a case of beer, they'll start a fight. If you give them a bag of marijuana, they'll start a band. Additionally, as indicated in the Schaefer report, no significant evidence exists that marijuana use will cause or lead to the commission of violent or aggressive behavior by a large majority of the psychologically and socially mature individuals in the general populations. The idea that's being spread around by fear is not based in fact. Back in 1970-71, these were facts that were known. There's nothing that is being relied upon by the opponents. Furthermore, marijuana and driving. We heard the Ingham County Sheriff suggest that it's difficult for the police departments to determine if there's probable cause to arrest when they encounter people that may have ingested cannabis prior to driving. He actually said, we have a tough time determining probable cause, which means there's no facts to support an arrest, meaning that there's no crime that's being committed, that there's no identifiable concern that is being recognized. Sheriff, do you realize what you're saying? You're saying that the problem with driving and marijuana is that when we encounter people that were suspicious that may have smoked marijuana, there's no evidence of them being affected by it while they're driving, and you're not able to establish probable cause to make an arrest. That shouldn't be a problem. That should be something that's not a concern to you. It should be something that means that your attention doesn't need to be drawn to it, and if there's no evidence of a crime, it should be assumed that you're going to follow your oath, not arrest somebody, and let them go. But to complain that when you encounter these people, there's no evidence of a crime and that's a problem, or at least a reason to vote against it, seems like you're making the argument that people should be voting for it. Another way to say your position is that when encountering people that were suspicious of potentially smoking marijuana before driving, we couldn't find any evidence to arrest them. And also, let's not forget, in all of these ads that these sheriffs are putting forth and opposing Proposition 1, none of them are mentioning the windfall that they're going to lose out on. What am I talking about? Forfeiture. If you're going to think about whether you should vote for Proposition 1 or not, I recommend that you look at the most recent publication of the Michigan State Police of the 2017 year of forfeiture and see that they brought in $12 million in cash and $13 million in property. Those are proceeds to the state based on forfeiture. And if you ask them, if forfeiture wasn't part of this, would you vote for Prop 1? See what their answer would be. It might be a little bit different. Or if proceeds from forfeiture went to fix the roads, or to teachers, or to some other government process, see if they would be for or against it. If they want to spend their time doing marijuana arrests, 4 hours it takes them off the road to process a marijuana arrest. Last year in Michigan, there was 21,000 arrests for marijuana. It's time to bring this insanity to an end. I would encourage you to do your research, make a decision, but don't be fooled by the false information that's being projected with a financial motivation. So think about that when you're considering voting for Proposition 1. And don't be distracted by false truths.